Hey everyone, hope you're having a good time in Star Wars Squadrons. Now if you've just started playing Squadrons and feel a little bit lost, be sure to check out my previous guide that covers the basics. And if you enjoy this content, be sure to subscribe for more. Today we'll be focusing on fleet battles and learning how to drastically increase your odds of winning by understanding what to focus on. Regardless of your piloting ability, this guide will definitely put you on the right track towards success. Now this guide is aimed at using a bomber and when playing with teams of strangers. However, the concepts here will apply to most situations. Also, I should note that I feel Imperials and TIE bombers are much superior to Y-wings and are easier to win with, but we'll get to that at the end of the video. Now, if I asked you what was the most important thing to pay attention to in fleet battles, what would you say? Kills and high KD ratios? No. Dealing as much damage to the enemy capital ships as fast as possible? Not quite, but you're on the right track. In my opinion, the most important thing to focus on is that little bar at the top of your screen. The morale bar controls everything that happens in fleet battles. If you can't fill it up, you can't win. There are a number of things to increase morale. Depending on offense or defense, you'll get different values. Killing players gives you 10 morale, or 5 depending on if you're on defense or offense. Killing computer-controlled AI starfighters gives you 5 points on defense and 2 on offense. Killing those attacking raider or corvettes gives you 20 points. And killing frigates and light cruisers of the enemy capital ships gives you 15 points. Now, do any of these point values seem to stand out to you? Well, in my opinion, the risk-reward for some of these is a little bit skewed. And because of this, I consider killing AI fighters incredibly valuable, especially on open maps such as Yavin. These little dudes fly around in groups of 5, and with multi-lock missiles on a bomber, it's simply one click to take out 4 of them. I'm not kidding guys, it's so simple you can do this on the way to doing another objective. And if you manage to get 4 of them in one missile volley, that's worth killing 2 players. Now, the crazy thing to me is most players completely ignore these ships. Take a look at the post-game scoreboards and take note at how many people kill more than just a handful. The answer is you really won't see a lot. And I feel like it's a shame because I think eventually trying to protect and attack other AI squadrons is going to be a very important part of this game. For example, you've just finished an attack and are retreating to defend. Imagine being able to pick off 1 or 2 squadrons of these guys before the enemy raider or corvette even gets to your capital ships. This could already put you halfway towards going back on the offensive. Now you add in a couple people that are just doing suicidal straight line bomb runs, and the enemy could almost have no time to actually attack. Now it's not always that simple. There are maps where the AI starts to get stuck and does weird things like in the shipyards. But on open maps like Esseles, killing those things is almost like taking candy from a baby. Now, this doesn't mean don't focus on objectives. It means be aware of the way you can acquire different resources to help you take objectives at appropriate times. If your morale bar is looking low on offense, perhaps maybe don't go for one last suicidal bomb and instead start mapping out where AI squadrons are. Since killing these on defense give you 2.5 times as much morale, it might be worth it to just wait a couple extra seconds for the side to flip and then focus on those. Conversely, if you're almost ready to attack and you just need a couple more points, maybe don't focus on that corvette that has full shields and full hull when you could fly out, take 10 seconds to find a squadron, and take it out. Now, even if you're on offense and they're worth less points, taking them out on the way to your objectives is like basically giving your team extra lives to attack with. And the main thing to focus on here is that there's almost no risk in taking these out. They're just flying around in a circle and they'll barely attack you. So please keep that in mind for the rest of the guide. Now in the background of the rest of the video, I'm going to post a full match and I want you to just take a look at how I'm playing and see how I kind of flow with what the guide says, but also still sometimes go out and do different things such as focusing on starfighters when the time seems right. So now let's go through my general flow as playing with a bomber. First, I have 2 main loadouts that I use on both sides. Now the first component I'm loading into these crafts is something to make them tankier, whether it's increased shields or hold depending on what side I'm on. And for both loadouts, I'm going to be using a rotary cannon because it's great overall damage for players and ships. Also in both loadouts, I'm using the multi-lock missiles, as they really do make farming AI starfighters passively a breeze. and they're pretty useful for doing some damage to turrets, capital ships, and even making a bunch of enemies start flipping out because they're all getting target locked at the same time. The only main way that these loadouts are different is that one has proton bombs and one has ion bombs. Now the ion bombs I really only use for the first part of the match, and that's only until a significant amount of the frigate or cruiser shields are gone. After that, I swap to proton bombs and I just keep those on for the rest of the match. So at the start of the match, the first thing I'm going to focus on are AI squadrons, instead of going straight into the meat grinder that is every ship attacking each other head on. Now to me, this is a much better use of my time, because if no one dies immediately and I'm able to take out 1 or 2 squadrons, we're already on the offense, before the enemy even knows what's hit them. Now this doesn't always work, and if your teammates just kind of joust with the enemy and they all die, or you take significant damage, you will have to back off a little bit and try to regroup with the rest of the team. But I'd say in at least 3/4 of my games, this is a great way to start off a match, and really puts the enemy on the back foot right away. Now if you do get placed on defense, sometimes I do try to just take out 1 or 2 more squadrons on the way back, just to make sure that our first defense is extra strong. So once you do get your first chance to attack, make sure as tanky as you can get. Overcharge shields, full hull, whatever you need to do. Your first job is going to be to take down the shields on both cruisers quickly. These are what the ion bombs are for. These bombs do so much damage to shields, they'll save your team an incredible amount of time, and allow them to focus on hull damage. You'll want to quickly get into a position where you can just reliably drop bombs one after the other, and if you start taking fire, you need to just feel out how much damage you can take before you really need to back off. Now in my opinion, it's okay to be a little bit suicidal with these ion bomb attacks, because we want to swap out of this loadout as soon as possible and focus on proton bombs. So do as much damage to the shields as you can, and once they're almost done or they're completely gone, you'll want to focus to doing rotary damage instead. Now it's not just you should keep firing your gun until you're dead. However, you can't always escape anyway, so sometimes it's best to just do as much damage as possible. Now this is a place I feel like TIE bombers have an incredible advantage. Thanks for their ability to turn engine boost into overcharged lasers, you're going to be able to keep all your power into engines in case you do need to make an escape, but at the same time have literally unlimited ammo to continue attacking the capital ship forever until you get pressured. Not only do you not need to let your gun reload, you're also going to be doing increased damage because the whole time your laser is going to be overcharged. And since you're able to keep all your power into your engines, you're going to have boost to be able to try and escape every time. This is just something that you can't possibly do in a Y-Wing. And that's what makes it especially important for you to have that proton bomb loadout as a secondary. These bombs add a huge amount of burst damage to your capital ship attack, and making sure you land these bombs is important to your overall damage. Now eventually you are going to get put to defense, and with that you're going to want to try to take out AI squadrons quickly with multi-lock missiles to help quickly fill that morale bar as quick as possible, along with taking out enemy pilots as they approach your cruisers and frigates, if you feel confident in your piloting abilities. Another option is to play it almost as just a turret. With capital ships, it's possible to hide within their shields and force enemies to have to fight through that before they can even hit you, all while loading damage right into their face. Now you always want to be doing something with your time, so if the enemy raider or corvette is dead, and there don't seem to be any enemies around, feel free to try to move out a little bit, kill some squadrons, and come back. Now this should lead to some very strong offensive and defensive rounds, and put you in a position to attack the enemy flagship. Now attacking these things can be tricky, and the best thing to do is work as a team, and attack at the same time along with your corvette or raider. For the most part, you can basically use these ships as bullet sponges as you slowly get close enough to do your first attack on a flagship. This allows you to save your boost and also charge maybe your weapons before you go in. Alternatively, being on the opposite side as where your raider is attacking from can give you a chance to sneak in if enemies are just focusing on lasering it down, or if enemy fighters are busy hunting down the rest of your teammates. And don't worry, their sacrifices will be remembered. So now you've closed in, what do you do now? Well, this is where I think the Imperials kind of have a monster advantage from the ship layouts alone. Now, if you guys have different opinions, I'd love to hear it in the comments, so please let me know. Now, in my opinion, Republic ships are pretty easy to take out. Thanks to them having all their subsystems on the front half of their ship, you don't have to travel as far to deal damage. On top of this, especially taking out their shield subsystems is almost too easy. This is mostly thanks to their flat, large surface area. This makes them extremely easy targets for you to hit with bombs. It can cause you to really take out their entire shield system quite quickly in 1 or 2 attacks. And remember, removing shields this quickly is huge. This means any damage your team, your raider, your corvette is doing is permanent damage to the hull of that ship. Along with just the layout, TIE bombers have the unlimited overcharge on their weapons, which makes it so they never have to retreat until the enemy responds to their attack. On the flip side, Imperial ships have most of their subsystems in a cluster which I like to call the death zone. This is just because to be able to attack their targeting, their shield, you basically have to travel the entire length of the ship. We're talking about a huge number of turrets. You're going to be extremely exposed to enemies who are defending, and if you want to take out the shield generators, you either have to be right on top of them, coming from an odd angle, or you have to fly upwards from straight in the middle of the ship to get a decent line to get damage in. Now with the fact that they're not flat, it actually makes landing your bombs a lot trickier because you need to aim a very specific way to hit them. And it's not easy to do when you're trying to just fire off the last of what you got before you die for the most part. And on top of that, if you've been attacking turrets on your way to the shield generators, you might not even have much ammo left in your laser cannons to attack. This is why for me, when attacking them, I tend to not even focus on those subsystems straight away. A couple attack runs on the turrets using bombs and missiles to try to neuter their defenses. And while you do these attacks, make sure you're keeping an eye on your shields because you're going to be constantly refocusing them because you're getting hit by every angle and you want to make sure every spot is covered. Now other things you can do that I've tried include using like an ion-based loadout where you have ion cannons, ion bombs, and all you're doing is removing shields with the Star Destroyer so the rest of your team can inflict hull damage. This can be a good strategy depending on your team's loadout, but also makes you pretty one-dimensional in what you're able to do. And I haven't been able to find as much success with this strategy. However, even with all these obstacles, I do tend to win most of my matches only by following the flow that I've described in this guide. Following this general flow of flying in a bomber, along with morale management, you'll probably see your win rate go up drastically, like I have. Even against more skilled pilots, ripping through your team with their 3 kill-death ratios, it won't do much if they can't have a sustained offense to attack you with. Now just a couple other general concepts I want to cover. And if you have a microphone, kind of trying to lead your teammates on what to do. For example, with a little coordination, attacking those Imperial Star Destroyers doesn't have to be as scary if the enemy's turtling, and they're just sitting there camping waiting for you to attack. Your team can just fall back, farm some AI fighters, and this will lead to some of your opponents getting a little impatient, flying out to attack you, and you can take more even fights to open up their defenses. Or you can make sure that your team goes in at the same time, putting yourself in a situation where it's a 5v5 instead of a 1v4 4 times in a row, with everyone coming in different times. It means not everyone can get lasered down by their defenses. Okay everyone, that's going to finish up the guide for today. If you enjoyed this guide or have any comments, please let me know down below. And to see more stuff like this, be sure to subscribe.